Hello, everybody. Welcome to SuperCoach AFL Live. Round 16 is upon us. Al Paton here to go through the teams with my good friend Matt Forrest. Voss, thanks for jumping on.
Thanks for having me. Another one. Last bye. How exciting.
Yeah, exactly. So I think someone added them all up. There's been about 7 or 8 bye rounds for the year out of, 16 rounds. So it's been a decent percentage. But this is the last one. And then we get 8 or so weeks of sort of normal life, best 22s through till the end of the season and sort of Supercoach grand final week, I guess. But yeah, we may as well get straight into it because we have a game tonight. Starts in an hour or so, Port Adelaide and Carlton. And we had the subs for that pretty shortly as well. But we did get the teams last night, and there was a bit of news in this from a Supercoach point of view, certainly from Carlton's perspective. So I can probably bring those up because there's a few outs there that certainly probably I didn't totally see coming. Matt Carroll getting dropped at least. I thought he's been pretty good the last couple of weeks. Obviously, Carlton hasn't been great, so they've got to make some changes. But that's one less player I'll have during the best 18 bye round, and we have plenty of other players missing as well, so that wasn't ideal. And Mark Pitnet straight out as well. I mean, he obviously did a reasonable job last week restricting Tristan Cherry, but probably I guess they didn't think they needed him against the might of Dante Visentini and Jordan Sweet.
Yeah, I think the Blues have swung the axe a little bit, but it's a misdirected axe. They've dropped a couple of young kids in Binns and Carroll, who, as you said, Carroll's been pretty good. He doesn't always hit his kicks, but he's happy to take that sort of chance through the middle, off the half back, like that 45-degree kick into the corridor, and every now and then it doesn't work. But the old brigade is, Vossy is coming under increased pressure, and he's going to die on this hill, I guess, with Doherty in there when he's been in pretty average form this year, and a lot of fans are calling for his omission. I know he's been out of the side a couple of times already this year, but he hasn't looked great. I thought Fantasia wasn't too bad last week, but he's another one who's probably one of those older heads that just keep surviving. And I think he could run a comb through the rest of the side and pull a bunch of passengers out of it. So yeah, a lot at stake for the Blues tonight. Yes,
absolutely, and they do have a couple of. Are they both debutants? Billy Wilson and is it Flynn Young?
Both debutants. Yep. So yeah, Billy Wilson, I think, was a 23 draftee, and then Flynn Young was a mid-season pickup. So yeah, Flynn's come down from Werribee in the VFL, was a Geelong local footballer a couple of years before that, and he's a sprightly young sort of small forward. And it'll be interesting to see where they play Billy Wilson. Probably he's been playing a bit of halfback in the VFL, but I don't really know where if that's sort of the position for him at the next level. Could easily be the sub tonight. I mean, so good for Young, I guess, but they need a small forward. So I think Young would probably play a full game.
George Hewitt on the bench is an interesting call. But yeah, a couple of changes at Port as well, not as relevant Supercoach wise, but Alia comes back in. Evans, Hugh Jackson gets another crack. Travis Boak is back. Jackson Mead got dropped. Finlayson dropped. Ryan Burton dropped. And Christian Moraes out again. He's just constantly in and out of the team, but he's certainly out of my Supercoach team, so I'm not so worried about that anymore. But that's it for the Thursday game. Now, the Friday night, what order have we got the games in here? We've got Gold Coast Melbourne next on the page, but the Friday night game, here we go, Sydney and the Bulldogs, which is a pretty good one at the SCG. Swans looking back in a bit of touch, getting some of their players back. So they brought Jake Lloyd back in after he was dropped last week, and Florin as well. And Joel Amati and Riley Bice goes out. So I'm not sure if he's surviving in too many Supercoach teams anymore, but he's out. And for the Doggies, a couple of changes there too. Jason Johannes and Riley Sanders are back. Adam Treloar, we know, another shocking injury that might just about be the end of the season for him. And Josh Dolan goes out as well. So I guess that from a sort of a thinking with a Supercoach hat on, you want to see what's we've got Mills named on the wing, which I think he had a really nice role last week, sort of floating across half back and then just sort of allowed to do whatever he liked. And Matty Roberts actually played on a wing, so he's named at half back. How much we know, read into how the teams are actually named, I guess, is another question. Chad Warner named in the middle. And then for the Dogs, it probably, where do we think the James Jordan tag goes? You got obviously Bont is a huge obvious target if you think you can tag him. Maybe an Ed Richards type or even Bailey Dale is another option for them.
Yeah, I think they'd be leaning towards an Ed Richards type. He's just been in outstanding form not only like he's been fantastic all year, but in the last sort of 6 to 8 weeks, he's been on another level. He's so damaging coming out of that centre square and into the forward line. And I think Jordan's body size and ability, running ability probably matches up with Ed Richards, and to a lesser extent Bailey Dale a little bit more. I think Richards is probably more damaging now at this point, so I wouldn't be surprised if the tag went there. But in saying that, they could easily try and put the clamps on Bontempelli as well. He was outstanding last week against Richmond. But I feel like that'd be more of a James Rowbottom at the stoppage type situation where he just puts one arm across the chest and says, let's dance at the contest and make some work for it a little bit. So that's how I see it happening tomorrow night. Hopefully my prediction's right. It's always nice when you make a bold call on a live show and it pays off.
Yeah, we've got a couple right over the course of the season so far. So then jumping into, we'll talk about captains too for Supercoach later on in the show. And if you've got any questions, leave them live questions, leave them below, and we'll try and get to some of them as well. So jumping into the Saturday game, and we do have Gold Coast playing Melbourne up at People First Stadium. Just the one change there. Supercoach favourite from last year, Alex Sexton comes in, Nick Holman goes out. A couple of potential captains in that Gold Coast team, I reckon, against the D's. And they've actually, there's some interesting calls there because Jake Lever, Caleb Windsor, and Jacob Van Rooyen, all that, and they've all been dropped, including Jake Lever. So, yeah, I don't know how many times he would have been dropped over his career. And coming in is Matt Jefferson, what's his first name? Tholstrup and Harry Sharp.
Yep.
Colton, that's
it's an interesting axe swinging at the D's. If you run through it, obviously Jefferson is replacing Van Rooyen in the forward line. Windsor sort of comes out as that dashing winger half back, and Harry Sharp slots in there. But then Tholstrup for Jake Lever sort of leaves them a little bit short in defence. I guess that Daniel Turner will just play as a number 2 rather than the number 3. It lets Blake Howes play that sort of more natural, medium-size defensive role that he plays rather than having to play a little bit smaller. So I guess that the balance sort of works there. Yeah, very, very fascinating that Lever's been dropped for this one. He hasn't been outstanding this year. He has come back. He had that ankle injury that kept him out for, I think it was about 6 weeks in the middle of the season, and he's only been back in the side for about a month now. But I hadn't thought he'd been too woeful. So yeah, and even then, surprising that Tom McDonald didn't get a call up, because usually when Lever or May miss, McDonald comes in and does a pretty good job. So surprising in a few ways for the D's decision making when it comes to team selection. But in saying that, they need to do something a little bit different. And I guess playing 3 young kids for and dropping Lever probably is that move for Goodwin.
Yeah, yep. Now, quickly, we do have some subs in for tonight's game. So it is Flynn Young on debut for the Blues, and Logan Evans is the sub for Port. So yeah, another debutant.
There's
Props
that quick
list, unfortunately.
The quick mention of the. Sometimes we get we make calls and bold calls on the podcast, and 30 seconds later we've got one wrong. So it's okay. What can you do?
Over to the Hawks now. Huge news here for Supercoach. Big bombshell. Henry Huswaite omitted after scoring, I think, 4 Supercoach points in their last game before the bye. Subbed out basically at halftime. So I think his papers were pretty well stamped. And Cam McKenzie comes back in. And for the Kangaroos, what have they done? They've just got one change as well, with Will Dawson coming in for Charlie Combat. So not a huge amount of exciting Supercoach or selection news in either of those, I wouldn't have thought. I suppose no Sicily again?
No Sicily. Scrimshaw's going to play another game in the VFL. He was managed a couple of weeks ago before the bye, and then he lasted about a quarter in the VFL before pinging his hamstring. There was a bit of concern around that, but he's clear to play, so he'll play another game. So that's it's an interesting one. The Hawks clearly are playing better with 3 talls in the back line rather than 4 or 5 like they have in the past. So and Sicily's been given all the time in the world. It turns out he had a sort of a pinched nerve situation, which was causing referred pain in his groin, his abs, his hip. So it seems like they found what the issue was, and it's just giving him a bit of time to rest and recover. But no sign of him just yet. Maybe next week. I don't know where you'd play him though. You bring him in.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting question, isn't it?
And Mitch Lewis is back in the VFL as well, so I'd imagine they'll probably give him a month's lead-in time to make a case for coming in the back end of the season. And if he does, then do you play Sicily? I don't know where you'd play him, on the wing, in the midfield. I don't know. It's not working down back, and might not need him up forward.
Yeah, interesting question, the captain. Okay, so the Saturday night game is West Coast versus Collingwood over in. No, that's a Marvel, in fact. So it's Collingwood West Coast, and a couple of changes for the Pies. Bring in Charlie Dean. We haven't seen him for ages, and Charlie West, who gets his first game, kicked 6 goals in the VFL last week, scored 150 something SuperCoach points. He's a 113k ruck forward in SuperCoach. Billy Frampton and Bo McCreary are out. And for the Eagles, we've got Oscar Allen out injured. Not sure how long that ended up being for in the end. And Tyrell Dewar also injured. So Brady Hoff and Job Shanahan comes in for his debut. And the other interesting one here is that Ryan Marich has been named in the back pocket. So maybe with Dewar out, he goes back into that defensive role. If anyone still has him. And Tom McCarthy named in the last spot on the bench. But surely that doesn't mean anything.
I'd be shocked if he's a sub. I'm more worried that Bo Allen's going to cop the sub vest. Named on that bench. Looking at it, it's probably going to be Jaden Hunt or Bo Allen, and Hunt usually avoids it. Charlie West comes in for his debut, another rookie option there. They love him down at the Pies, so hopefully he can get a run of games. And Job Shanahan has a real chance to play a really extended patch of games. With Oscar Allen's out for the season now, so he's been put on ice surgery to fix up his I think it's a patella tendon, or so it was a cleanup of the knee of some description. So he's out for the year. Chance he's played his last game in West Coast colours, but in the short term at least, it gives Shanahan a chance. And another one from that fabled draft class of last year. He's a big key forward, can go down and play in the back line as well, and it's just a fierce competitor. So excited to see what he brings.
Yep. Okay, so Sunday games, we have 2 games on the Sunday. The first one is Richmond going over to, this is at the MCG actually, so Adelaide coming back over to Melbourne. I think maybe their 3rd game at the G last year, the last one before potentially finals. I mean, they're top 4 at the moment, and they'll presumably be still there at the end of this, you would imagine. But so just extended squads we're talking about for Sunday. So Mikelty Lefau gets potentially another chance. He was in the squad last week and didn't make the cut. James Trezise as well, and Jacob Blight, who's been just putting up massive numbers in the VFL, but just can't get in because Richmond, one area they actually are decently stocked as 4 sort of key defenders. But at least he gets onto the extended bench for now, and we'll see what happens when the final team is named tomorrow. A little bit of injury news out of Richmond that we've only found out in the last couple of days is that Kane McAuliffe, who was out last week injured, hurt his quad at training sort of late in the week, and they're saying now he'll miss a month, basically 3 or 4 weeks. So no sign of him. And the Crows, they have got one out, which is Luke Pedlar, so that's not ideal if you're relying on him to be a green dot this week. I think he had a corky or something last week. So a bit unfortunate there. And who have they got coming in? Peatling's back. Chase Jones, is it? We haven't seen him. Has he basically played all year? Zach Taylor and Chris Burgess are the other potential ins for Adelaide. But again, not a huge amount of SuperCoach news unless you were a Luke Pedlar owner.
Yeah, not super exciting there. I don't really know what to talk about with that game, I guess. Jasper Alga gets his 2nd game. Hopefully he's not the sub. Once again, small forward, not going to score massive numbers even if he gets a full game, but just, I guess, one to watch. It could be a potential rookie next week if he scores okay and holds his spot.
Yep. There's Chase Jones' first game of the year if he does make the cut, which he probably won't. So we will move on quickly to the last game, which is Freo and St Kilda over in Perth. So Freo, just the 3 ins again to the extended squad: Oscar McDonald, Sean Darcy, and Isaiah Dudley. So it'd be interesting to see whether Darcy's named on the extended bench. Do they bring him back in and play him? I mean, obviously just playing Jackson on his own worked all right last week, but I guess if you got Darcy there, you probably want to use him. But we'll find out tomorrow. And the Saints managed Jimmy Webster. They brought in potentially Hugo Garcia's putting up some huge numbers. And the VFL, Liam Henry, don't know if he's been doing a whole lot, but probably need to try and play him at some stage. Jack Carroll back, and Harry Boyd's there also on the extended bench, but probably just your sort of ruck insurance. We normally see a ruckman named there on the extended bench just in case something happens to Rowan Marshall between now and Sunday. But again, not a huge amount of SuperCoach news from that one, I don't think.
Not really. They've flagged 2 changes. I know they've only rested or managing Jimmy Webster at this point, but Hugo Garcia's named in the middle and Henry's named on the half-forward flank. So there's 2 players named on the field, which I know it doesn't mean anything on a Thursday night before the Sunday game. They'll finalise their match day squad tomorrow at about 5 p.m. But it sort of gives an idea of maybe Ryan Burns is out He was, he's one of those guys who's on the fringe constantly. So a watch for him. Also, Toby Travalia on the extended bench, and Jack Carroll as well. They're probably the three to watch. I imagine a couple of those guys are dropping out with Harry Boyd.
Yeah, I suppose the other one that's not listed there is Mateus Philippou, who was supposed to play last week, pulled out just a few minutes before the game. He's that plantaris injury is going to keep him out for a few more weeks. So it was sort of a bit of a weird situation where Travalia was the sub and he stayed the sub, and Ryan Burns came from out of the squad and started on the ground. We'll see how they manage. But obviously those two guys are probably both, very much on the fringes. But that's it for the team. So not a huge amount of bombshells, which is probably good in terms of the fact that it is probably just about the toughest bye round. Maybe round 12 was pretty hard, but that's certainly up there for in terms of number of popular Supercoach picks who aren't playing. So hopefully people will be able to get 18 at least, and maybe a couple on top of that to get us through the buys. Having a Matt Carroll out or a Luke Pedler out doesn't help, but not too many others that are going to cause too many dramas, I don't think. But how are you looking in terms of numbers this weekend?
Yeah, I've got 23, which is very nice. 18 premiums. I've got the 3 Brisbane premiums in Dunkley, Neil, and Ashcroft all on my bench, which hurts. And then I've got a couple of Geelong plays, obviously, in Max Holmes and Bailey Smith, which I think is pretty standard across the board at this point of the season. Yeah. But I've been quite strong in the buys. I've moved up. I'm sitting just outside the top 10,000 at the moment, which is a fair way off where I would like to be. But I've climbed. I've had a shocker of a year. Cash generation hasn't been there. My premium picks have been hopeless, and I'm just trying to climb the board at this point. So if I can get inside the top 5,000 by the end of the year, I think I'll be pretty happy.
Actually, one that I didn't mention when we were going through the team is the Hawks. I actually do have someone who is Supercoach relevant this week, and that is Sam Butler. So just going back and quickly looking at their team, he's been named on a wing. Obviously made the one change, McKenzie back in for Huswaite. What do you think of his role and job security going forward? Because he's one, even though I really have hardly any trades and can't afford to be using any, if I was going to do one this week, he's one that I'm potentially looking at just because my forward bench is completely dead. I've got 2 guys there who aren't playing and aren't likely to play anytime soon, and I think that's actually not that uncommon at this stage of the year with a lot of people. So coming out of the buys, I don't love the idea of not having any cover whatsoever if, what if Bailey Smith misses a week, which is, he's done that a couple of times already this year. Every chance it happens again. Some stage in the run home, or a Petrarca gets a 2-week injury. I don't want to have to be forced to trade them out. If if there's one guy missing, given that we've got best 23 and flex this year, you could probably just run with 22 for a week if you had to. But, what do you think of the idea of, using a trade to get someone like basically, just be cashing in a Cooper Simpson or someone who's not playing to get Butler there just as that sort of cover for the next 8 rounds? Is he safe? Can he actually score okay?
Yeah, I don't think that his position is in jeopardy at this stage. Obviously, he's missed a long stint of football with that horrific leg break at the start of last year. He played the first 4 or 5 weeks of the 2024 season, got dropped after the horrific Gold Coast game, and then broke his leg in the VFL a couple of weeks later, and is essentially only just returned in the last couple of months. But at VFL level, has been playing as a pure midfielder after a couple of early games where he was building up his conditioning, and his numbers were, not only was he getting a lot of the ball and being involved as a scoring threat, both kicking goals and assisting in them, but he was also defensively fantastic. He runs both ways. His tackling pressure is outstanding. He sort of came from that small pressure forward role and has evolved his game into more of a midfielding type role. So he's got the ability to accumulate, got the ability to tackle, which is great for Supercoach if you can break into a midfield rotation. But also coaches love it because you're doing both things. So I think he's gone past players like Finn McGuinness because he's more attacking than Finn, but he does the defensive things like Finn. So I guess there's more strings to his bow. Clearly, he's been preferred over Henry Huswaite and Cam McKenzie for the last few weeks, but he got brought back. He got brought into the senior side after the string of the 3 losses in a row, and has come in and played pretty well. And the Hawks have won the last couple of games with him in the side. So there is I'm not saying that he's the reason for the Hawks winning, but he's certainly been part of it in the last couple of weeks. So, and he's playing. It's not like he's coming on for the last few minutes of the game and is the sub and he's just he's having an active involvement in the win. So I think his position is pretty safe. I'm bringing him in personally. I don't think it's one that you bring him in to make 150k and then sell him. I think he's just going to be that sort of, F7, F8 bench warmer, but playing and scoring 50 to 60 each week. And, it's that break glass in case of emergency type. So, yeah, I've got pretty good faith that he'll hold his spot for the rest of the season. I don't think he's going to be a sub candidate. I think that tackling pressure is the reason why he got brought into the side, and he hasn't, shied away from that when he's been in the side. So, all signs point to him, remaining in the best 22 at least.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something to ponder. I mean, the other one who's quite a popular pick this week, Manny Liddy at Port Adelaide, worth, I suppose, just noting that he dodged the sub vest tonight. I think he's named at half forward, so he'll be playing his third game, 99k in the midfield. So that's another one that people could potentially jump on. I guess the forward line for me is the one I'm a bit more worried about. A dual position would be ideal, but not a heap of those around, unfortunately. But we better get into the best bets of the week, powered by Better. Now, last week I got done over by the sub because I had a bunch of Bulldogs combos, and in fact, I think I was dead before this even happened. But Buku Karmas had him for a couple of goals, and he was the sub, and didn't come on till after half time. So I didn't really have much of a hope there. But I can't remember. How did you go, Matt? What was your bet last week?
Honestly, cannot remember. Hold on, who played? It would have been the Thursday night game. No idea. So that's probably a loss. That's never a good sign. Oh, that's right. I had the Andy Brayshaw 30 plus and Paddy Dangerfield 2 goals. And Brayshaw had 29. Right. And Dangerfield had a bunch of shots at goal and didn't score. So that one was great. Loved.
We can do better this week. What do we got?
I was filthy at Brayshaw. He spent the last 5 minutes on the bench, but then Danger just ruined it anyway. I'm going very simple this week. I'm not mucking around with player props or anything like that. I'm just going, I think Port Adelaide's great value tonight over Carlton. I think they'll win pretty comfortably. I'm then going Hawks at the line against North Melbourne. North's been pretty good, but the line at the moment is 32.5. So I'm going to take the 5 goals, and I reckon the Hawks will absolutely smack them. And then I'm also I'm also, for a little three-way, going the Sydney Swans to upset the Western Bulldogs. Playing great footy at the moment. That's paying $8. So I'm going to take those 3. Pretty good. Right.
Yeah, it must be when I was doing my tipping, the Bulldogs Sydney game, that was just about the hardest one because, the Swans do look a different team. I mean, it's at the SDG. They haven't exactly been great there this year, but, it's so hard to know with the Dogs. They look $1 million 1 week and then it's a bit different story when they come up against some of the better teams, but it's hard to know exactly where Sydney falls at the moment. But they definitely sort of need to win if they want to keep their season alive. I'm looking at the Gold Coast versus Melbourne game. I really like Gold Coast in this one, so I've got them for the win. Then Noah Anderson to have 35 plus and Matt Rowell to have 25 plus. So you get $7.75 for that. Melbourne's given up the most, certainly Supercoach points and disposals in the midfield all year. And if you look at his last 5 games, Anderson had 42 last week. He had 19 the week before, which was down at Geelong. I can't remember if he copped the hard tag there, but obviously pretty hard going down the highway. But in the 3 games before that, he had 39, 36 and 35. So he's in pretty good form up against the Ds. And Matt Rowell had 34 last week, and then before that, 24, 27, 24, 29. So I reckon he can get the 25 this week. I guess the only question mark would be, Melbourne has pulled out a few weird sort of tagging moves at different stages this year with a Clayton Oliver, or they unleashed Ed Langdon on Nick Dacos. So do they try something like that on Noah Anderson? But if they don't, I think, those guys will both absolutely rack it up.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout. They average good numbers. They're both great captaincy options as well, Rowell and Anderson. And we've seen after players have signed extensions at their clubs this year, they've seemed to have gone ham the next week. So eyes on Matty Rowell to have 40 and kick 3. So one to watch. Yeah,
absolutely. What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen, 1-800-858-858, or visit the website gamblinghelponline.org.au. And Matty, there you mentioned captain, so we'll get into that. There's a couple of questions as well, but really, I think lot of options when it comes to captaincy this week. We've got Max Gawn back, Tristan Cherry against Lloyd Meek potentially. He's been a bit down the last couple of games, but I think that's a pretty good matchup for him. And then, I do have Matty Rowell, and I'm half tempted to maybe put the VC on him in that game against Melbourne. I suppose the obvious ones, Nick Dacos against West Coast really jumps out on the Saturday night. And then if you've got Jordan Dawson, which I don't, it's going to be pretty rough watch. I think him against the Tigers on Sunday, he could go absolutely massive as well. But anyone else that you like? I think, there's quite a few we could potentially choose from this weekend.
Yeah, I'm looking at Tom de Koning out of tonight's game.
Oh, yeah, with no Pitto.
Byzantinian, sweet, no Pitten out. So he had a pretty poor showing last week, but that's just purely like he was coming up against Cherry, who's obviously a gun ruck, but he was also playing a lot forward of the ball. He'll be back in the centre square tonight with Lewis Young as his backup. So I think he'll return to that sort of 120 plus scoring, which is what you want to see. Dacos I think is the clearest shout. If you got Jordan Dawson, I don't, and I'm trying to find a way to get him in. Then definitely be leaning that way as well. And then if you've got Andy Brayshaw, I'd be tempted to go him in the last game of the round, but I also don't like doing the last game of the round players. So there is a chance that Marcus Windhager tags, but there's been a lot of talk about him going to Caleb Sarong, which I think that matchup probably makes more sense than Brayshaw. So I'm avoiding it purely as a Caleb Sarong owner. But there is the threat of that tag moving on to Brayshaw if he starts outstandingly. So just one to keep in mind. Yeah, for sure. Just looking at quickly jumped onto the West Coast website because I've got a question here. What's wrong with Diwa? And they say that he wasn't able to get up from a hamstring niggle. But the site also does mention that Brady Hoff comes in, has recovered from illness. A potential tagging job on Magpie star Nick Dacos looms for Brady Hoff. Would that scare you off at all? Nah.
How many tags
Dacos is either the best or the second best player in the competition, apparently, and Brady Hoff is Brady Hoff. So no disrespect, he's an AFL player, and I talk about it on podcasts. So he's had a pretty good year, but I think Dacos he showed last week that he's learning how to break a tag. The Pies are helping him a little bit with it, and he's hard to stop once he gets going. Yeah, no, I'm not too worried about that. A couple of quick questions before we finish off. Damien asking Bergman going back affect Rosie. I mean, so Connor Rosie played pretty much exclusively midfield last week. And maybe Bergman did go back, but then he was sick or whatever he told Isaac Heaney. And who was it? Globally Wines didn't play. I guess Wines isn't there this week either. I mean, I don't know if you watch Port Adelaide that closely. Do you think Rosie's they've named him on the ball, whether that means much? Any inclination where he might get? Typically, they've been pretty honest with their naming of players and where they position themselves. So if he's named on the ball, I'd expect him to play on the ball. I know that Carlton's got a really strong midfield. It's probably their best section of the ground, but they're all not plotters. But that's probably a bit disrespectful. But they're slower moving inside contested midfielders, and the likes of Butters and Rosie and Horne-Francis are very explosive out of the contest. So I think it'll be a real clash of different styles. I think Port Adelaide probably gets the ascendancy through that midfield mix, and if Rosie's in there, then he'll be a beneficiary of that. So exciting to see. I'd love to see him on the ball, and rather than playing off the half back, especially against Carlton, because Carlton, I just think his explosive tendencies will probably benefit him a bit more on the ball against Carlton's slower moving midfielders. Yeah, Horne-Francis, interesting. It's 2 games back from injury. He's had hardly any centre bounces, but he's named on the in the centre square tonight. So we'll see what he does. Hopefully, they'll just sort of increase that back when he gets his match fitness up. But tonight could be a good game for him to maybe cash in on that. Quick question here from Bailey: is Lloyd going to affect Mills? I mean, the mix seemed to work pretty well last week, but I guess Bice goes out, Lloyd comes in, probably doesn't change a whole lot. I think they'd be pretty happy with what Mills was doing. Yeah, I think so. I think if anything, Ollie Florence, the one that would affect Mills on that sort of half-back line. Yeah. But there's a chance that Florence or Lloyd, honestly, one of them could be the sub. So also that sort of changes the dynamic of it. It sort of depends on who gets named there. But I think both of them are probably wingers / half-back, and I don't know. Mills, I have a lot of players. I don't know. Long term, I don't know where Mills plays in the Sydney side. Like his flexibility just means he moves around so much.
Yeah, that is true. That's always a potential issue with him, but still under 400k in Supercoach. So I still like him. But Josh asking, would you trade Merritt for Sam Darcy this week? So it gives him a 23rd primo. But obviously Merritt on the bye. He's had a lot of tags. Sam Darcy did come down in price again last week a tiny little bit, despite playing extremely well. Playing Sydney this week might be a bit tougher, but his break even's way down. So this is as cheap as you'll get him. Would you make that move? You'd make a little bit of money out of the deal.
Yeah, I'd consider it. I'm really just watching the Bombers last week. Merritt, I don't want to say checked out, but he just didn't seem like he was that same player that was just willing his team to victory like he was in the first half of the season. It might be the change of positions and the fact that he's sort of floating half back, half forward, midfield, and he's sort of getting thrown around, or it just could be the fact they're 16 weeks into a season where sort of all hope is lost and he might have lost a little bit of interest, but he's not scoring that well. He's still worth a little bit of cash and he's on the buy, so there might be the perfect time to jump off him. I don't like trading premiums. I'm sort of having trouble this week because I want to move one of the Brisbane players, but I don't know which one, and I'm sort of just tossing it up. So, I mean, if you sold that Merritt's not going to be sort of top 10 to top 15 midfielder from this point for the rest of the season, then it's probably a good sign to move him on. And Sam Darcy is obviously a very good option to do so. It gives you a bit more flexibility, as you said. So I don't hate the idea, but there's also a chance he comes back from bye refreshed and ready to go, and he dominates.
He does have Richmond in a couple of weeks, and he always scores about 170 against them. So be prepared for that one. And yeah, I suppose the other question is just how many trades you have left. Like if you've only got 4 or 5 trades like me, I wouldn't be trading out someone like Merritt, but maybe if you've got 8 or 10 or something, it's a bit more of something you could consider.
Who has 10 trades at this point of the season?
I think I spoke to someone the other day. He's got about 15, but I don't know. Maybe they were overseas for a while or something. A question about trading prior TDK and Zach Johnson. So a couple of those Essendon rookies who are on the buy to McRae, JHF, and Mills. So sort of all those, cheaper-ish premiums, I guess. I mean, McRae's another one that's been talking a bit about this week, and I do like him. Horn Francis, good value. Mills, I think, is still good value, but maybe a couple of question marks over him. But I don't think I'd be trading out Tom DeConing to make this happen. I mean, this person said they have gone, but we saw Tom DeConing obviously scored a bit lower last week, but just go back, a week or two before that with no Pindat in the side and he's scoring 140. So, I don't know if there's another way to do it, but I probably wouldn't be getting rid of TDK.
I wouldn't either. I'm not sure. I assume there's someone in the flex position that's a ruck. If it means that you can move 2, defensive and midfield rookies in a ruck to 3 non-rucks, I guess. So, I wouldn't be trading DeConing at this point. If Pitnet was named again tonight and in coming weeks, then I'd consider it. But at this stage of the season, I think he's probably going to be a top 3, top 4 ruck as long as Pitnet's not playing.
Yeah, and like you said tonight, he's a potential. He's even a VC option against Jordan Sweet and Dante Visentini. I think he should go pretty well. The last one, quickly, Michael Voss. Not going so well for Carlton, but hopefully his Supercoach team's going a bit better. But he's this Michael Voss anyway. He's looking at trading Carroll, Pedler, and Zach Johnson. So no issues with any of those guys. And looking to get in Jack McRae and putting him in the midfield, which I don't mind that idea at all. I really wish I had one of my mid-forward premiums. They're all in the forward line, and I wish I had one of them in the midfield so that if something happened, like I said, if Bailey Smith misses a week, you could swing. In this case, you could swing McRae down. Bring someone off the mid-bench, just cover, it just gives you a lot more options. So, and especially this year, the midfield's been a bit of a weird one where there's, a lot of those guys that we normally trust, like a Merritt or a Lockie Neal, haven't been as good. So, don't hate the idea at all of using up 1 or 2 midfield spots on a mid-forward or a mid-defender,
No, early in the season, I try and put all the mid-forward premiums in the forward line. But at this point of the year, it's good to have that flexibility, as you said. Like I've got Christian Petrarca currently in my M5 position. I'm very happy to have him there. Whether it's the rest of the season, I'm not sure. But it just gives you that the potential to do so much more. If a rookie on the bench scores 80 or 90 and you're like, how do I get him on the field? Then you can swing some magnets a lot easier. You don't have to worry about it too much. Definitely don't hate that as an idea, especially with only 7 or 8 rounds in the season left to bring in a discounted premium and and play him at your M8 spot, because Macrae from here on out is going to average probably 105, which is what you're going to be asking of an M8 that you're bringing in if he wasn't forward eligible.
Yeah, no, totally agree with that. Like I've got maybe a Chera or a Will Ashcroft type sort of in that spot, and that's Macrae could outscore those guys easily. So I really like him as an option this week. But that's about all there is to talk about from the round 16 teams. Last round of the bye. So next week we have 9 games to talk about again, which will be nice. But good luck everybody covering, using as many green dots on the field as you possibly can. I'll have to just think about whether Sam Butler is a potential trade in, but otherwise, if you're making trades, good luck with those, and enjoy the footy this weekend, Matt.
Thank you. Can't wait.
And we'll see everybody soon.